Please start.
So ready to go?
Yeah, yes, please start.
Good morning to all the participants in US. Good afternoon to the participants from Europe and good evening to the participants from India. My name is Chandrasekhar Koneru. I am an internist practicing in Huntsville, Alabama. And I'm also a student and a trainer of Heartfulness meditation practice. So I welcome all of you to join this meeting. And this program is brought to us by the Heartfulness Institute in collaboration with American Association of Physicians of Indian Origin and Medicover Hospital in Hyderabad. So we have a number of distinguished panelists today, and I want to welcome Dr. Ravi Kohli, who is the president-elect of AAPI, and Dr. J from Jairam Timmapuram. He's an academic in a hospitalist in Pennsylvania. Dr. Parikshit, well-recognized psychiatrist in Florida. Dr. Haresh, he's a very experienced and popular cardiologist in Bombay. Dr. Sharath from Hyderabad, and Dr. Hester O'Connor is joining us from Ireland. We are fortunate to have all these distinguished panelists who are well recognized in their profession. And the Heartfulness Institute is a service organization, educational and spiritual organization, purely run by the volunteers. During these difficult times, Heartfulness has been providing an extraordinary service to the humanity by providing more than 1 million meals and about more than 750,000 masks to the healthcare workers. And recently, Heartfulness has launched an app where anyone can access this app. Through the app, they can access the services of the physicians. There are about 2,000 physicians providing these services without any cost. And the Heartfulness is mainly a service organization purely run by the volunteers. And we are fortunate that Heartfulness is doing this in collaboration with the well-recognized organizations like AAPI and Medicover Hospital. So I just want to briefly outline the program. Sister Snehal will be moderating this program, and she will take us to a couple of minutes of silence and prayer. Following that, there will be a talk by Brother Jairam Timmapuram, Dr. Jairam, and he gives a very nice talks. Sometimes he makes us to sleep during his talk. Okay, that's his specialty. And actually, in between, we will have Dr. Ravi Kohli to say a couple of words. So over to you, Dr. Snehal. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandrabai, Dr. Chandra Koneru, and a very warm welcome to everyone, our healthcare professionals and our esteemed guests who are watching this show. So before we start and go to our guest speakers, let us come to an alignment within ourselves. The last couple of years have been really turbulent for humans, all of us, humankind as a whole. We have faced it together. Of course, this situation has got all of us together and made us realize one fact, that we are same inside out. We are vulnerable, we get anxious, we feel uncertain. And throughout situations which we have faced as professionals, and many of us have lost our dear ones, some of us are undergoing a lot of situations which We are really driven within ourselves with anxiety. So it is very important to take a minute off, be in silence, and offer our prayers for everyone, every single being. It is also equally important to thank profusely all our brothers and sisters involved in healthcare, our healthcare professionals who have day in and day out stood and protected all of us and continue to do so. A heartfelt thanks to every single person who is involved in the healthcare. Let us sit in silence with our eyes closed for a few minutes with hearts filled with love and gratitude in a prayerful silence. Please start. Thank you for joining us for this prayer.
Thank you, Sister Snehal. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Ravi Kohli. Ravi was my senior in my medical school in Kakinada, and he migrated to US several decades, 3 decades ago, and he's a psychiatrist. He practices in Pennsylvania. He has a long list of accomplishments, and he is the future president of AAPI, American Association of Physicians of Indian Origin, and he's going to be the president-elect. I think his term starts next week, and he'll be in that position for a year. Following that, he'll be the president of AAPI. So I request Brother Ravi to say a few words.
Yeah, good morning and good evening, dear friends. Again, I want to thank my younger brother, Chandra, for inviting me and introducing me to all of you. And I also want to express my gratitude and thanks to Heartfulness Institute, as well as Medicover and Sharath for making me a part of your team. I really appreciate it. I don't want to take too much time introducing myself since Chandra already did that. Chandra called me this morning and gave me a clues of what I should talk about. So I was kind of unprepared because I had a late night with my friends playing cards. That's my way of relaxation. Once a month we do that. Actually, we have suspended that over the past year, but we restarted after the past 4 months. I was the host last night. I won some money. So I'm happy regardless. So anyway, he asked me to talk about how do you start your day with a positive attitude. And whenever I'm kind of stumped, I go to my wife for answers. And she's actually the smart one in the house. Even though I act smart, she's the real smart one. And this simple thing is, usually I started a new practice lately. I started telling my wife good morning in the morning every day. I think that's a great beginning. And instead of waking up, telling her to wake up, I started telling her good morning. And she said, you stop there, you go to the next level. Okay, let's do something together. So let's have a cup of coffee. So start your day with a good thought towards your spouse and wishing her a good morning and start doing something together. So that's a good beginning. Besides that, the usual answers is there are studies done. Having an attitude of gratitude is very important. And there have been studies done before you wake up, before your feet hit the ground, have 3 or 4 or 5 good thoughts of what you're grateful for, what you woke up to, what you're grateful for. So those positive thoughts will really take you further during the day. And those are simple things because we have so much to be grateful for in life. We take a lot of things for granted. We discount all our success and positives in our lives, our relationships, our accomplishment, our friendships, our general peace of mind, our family, our friends, and the beauty of the nature, the morning, the early sunrise, and the birds chirping. So we take so many things for granted. Just pause for a minute, just enjoy the moment. Those are the important things. Of course, there are other mundane things like a good night's sleep is very important. 7 to 8 hours of good night's sleep is very important because you start your day after a good night's sleep, you're already ahead of the game. And there are other simple things like eating a healthy breakfast, exercising, consuming less alcohol. Those are all good things to start your life with. And of course, we are here for heartfulness part of it. So meditation is a very good beginning of a day. So these are all simple things that we take them for granted again, I said. So as a human beings, we tend to focus on negativity. That is not a bug. That is a feature in our brain that's designed to be that way. The reason being that negativity gene in our ancestors protected them, right? If they didn't have that negative bias, if they didn't watch for the dangers in their environment, our primitive cavemen, our ancestors would not have survived. For them, there are a lot of dangers in their environment. There is a predator, there are natural calamities, there is starvation, there is uncertainty in their lives. They don't know what a thunder meant, what was a lightning meant. So they have no answer. So they were filled with a lot of fear. That fear bias protected them by taking extra precautions. There's like a smoke alarm going off at every minute. But we live in a civilized world. We are in a climate control world. Our temperature is at 72 degrees in America. And we have bottled water. We have all the creature comforts. But we still have the genetic bias to watch for negativity in our surrounding. That's how we prepare ourselves to fight or flight, right? So, but excessive fear, excessive this alarm going on constantly is a source of a lot of our stresses. So once we realize this negativity bias, which is natural, but you counter that with reality testing, then you'll be able to kind of overcome a lot of these fears. I just want to touch a few other things. Most important thing is gratitude. And you already talked about it, gratitude, how important it is. And another 2 things I just want to talk, I don't want to take too much of your time. I used to think optimism is a kind of a oversold. There's a list positive psychology and self-help, multi-billion-dollar industry. I kind of biased against positive thinking in that sense. But the more I think about it, last year, actually, the past year has been a transformational year for me. Even though it has been a very traumatic year for a lot of people, I found some inner strength. And I like to share my experiences a little bit with you, not too long. There is a concept called post-traumatic growth, right? We all know about post-traumatic stress. Post-traumatic stress leads to your kind of depersonalization and pessimism and negativity and uncontrolled emotions and reactions. But there's another thing called post-traumatic growth. So people who are traumatized, who are gone through some very difficult time, some of them, not everybody, actually, majority of the people don't suffer from post-traumatic stress after a stressful event. Maybe 10, 15, 20%, 25% either have symptoms or illness of post-traumatic stress. But there are some who come out stronger. What is that how do they accomplish that? So I'll give you a few items what post-traumatic growth is characterized by. One thing is they appreciate life more. So that is a part of gratitude. And they have a deeper relationship, like I have with my wife now, better than last year or past 2 years back. So third thing is they realize their own inner strengths, what they can accomplish. And the fourth thing is they look at the newer past possibilities. They don't understand their own potential to accomplish newer possibilities. So, and the fifth and final thing is spirituality. Spirituality is different from religiosity, right? So we'll talk about it a little bit later. So the 5 elements are greater appreciation of life, a deeper relationship, greater possibilities, and your own awareness of your own strength and spirituality. Talking about spirituality is not religiosity, right? For me, organized religion is not a big thing in my life because organized religion tend to divide people into different groups and pit against each other. So that's my kind of biased opinion. So organized religion is ritualistic and spirituality is spiritualistic. So I was asking a question to some guru last couple of months back. He said, ritual and spiritual, you have to have spirituality, not just the rituality. But rituality has its role and purpose. Like so Chandra asked me, how do you start your day? You can start your day with a ritual. So ritual gives you discipline and structure and function. And the spirituality, the higher plane of kind of philosophy. For example, religiosity is like a frog in a well, right? There's a Sanskrit saying called kupasa manduka, meaning a frog in the well thinks that the whole world, that the whole universe. So it kind of limits itself in a religious sense. But spirituality is like a fish in the ocean. There's no limit to it. It's unlimited. You're connected to the whole entire universe. So that's the difference between, in my opinion, between religiosity and spirituality. So being spiritual kind of connects all of us together. So that's another thing. So then one more thing I just want to touch upon is, like I said, positivity, positive thinking, and all those things. I kind of used to have this is just a Pollyannic view of world, all the rainbows and unicorns and twinkles and like a Disney World kind of mindset. That's not optimism. Actually, being a psychiatrist, there are 4 ways to define optimism. My manic patient says it's half full, right? My depressed patient says it's half empty. My psychotic patient says it's full. It is half full with water and half full with air. So it's always full, right? And my obsessive compulsive patient says it's a 4 ounces of water in an 8-ounce glass. So you can define it any way you want, right? But optimism, the operational definition of optimism is there's a difference between optimist and a pessimist. Pessimist sees all the problems as permanent, personal, and pervasive. Meaning, when something goes wrong, you say this problem will remain there forever. I cannot overcome this, personalize this. Third thing is pervasive. Whatever I do, there's something else will go wrong. So this permanent personalization and the pervasiveness of this negative thinking, what characterizes a pessimist. As opposed to that, an optimist doesn't take things as a permanent problem. He says, yeah, this problem has arisen now, but doesn't mean that this problem will be there forever. Life is full of problems, but they're not permanent. We make it permanent in our mind, but they're not permanent. So he sees it as a temporary problem, and he doesn't personalize it. Okay, he doesn't see a failure as his failure. Yeah, we can attribute all our success and failure to ourselves, either feel like we are God or we are like useless. But neither of them are true. Our failures and success are combination of factors: our environment, our opportunities, our own effort, our own peer support, whatever. You're not just you. You are part of the whole entire universe and your own society and your family. So they don't personalize it. If I fail, it's not entirely my fault. It could maybe my lack of effort, my lack of preparation would be part of it. But there's bigger picture, right? There's an environmental factor. For example, if I have a bow and an arrow and I shoot it, if it doesn't go to the target, there could be many factors. It could be that the wind, the other thing, maybe the arrow was not properly balanced or the string was not fully taut. So there are so many factors. Your effort is the same, but the outcome may be different because of the environmental factor. So it's not personal. It could be, and some other factors could play a role. So when you take it not personally, you're more likely to try again. And the third thing is pervasive. So the optimist doesn't think it's a pervasive problem. This is just a temporary problem. It's not entirely my failure, but it's not going to be there forever. It's not going to be in all aspects of my life. Just because I fail one day doesn't mean I'm going to fail tomorrow. If I'm Virat Kohli, if I score a 0 today, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to score a century tomorrow. So it's not pervasive. So an optimist thinks in a temporary, it's a problem is temporary. It's not my own failure that's causing this obstacle. And they don't think it is a pervasive problem. So when you think like that, you're more likely to succeed, right? Wayne Gretzky says, only goals you score is the shots you take. If you take 100 shots, you might not score 99 times. But the goal you score is because you took the shot. So you have to take the shot. And so that's the only way you succeed. So attitude is important, but action is also important. So when you follow up with your attitude with a positive action, your outcomes are more likely to succeed. Even if you fail, it's okay. You're going to succeed one day if you keep trying. So those are the small tidbits I want to give. We're all going through physician burnout, kind of, which is characterized by your typical desensitized, like exhaustion and depersonalization and kind of lack of efficacy feeling. But I think our next speaker will talk more about all those aspects. So I think I'll stop here. And Chandra also asked me about positive attitude of the physicians and outcomes. I didn't get too much information on it, but definitely your attitude is contagious, right? If you have a positive attitude, physician-patient is a relationship. It's not just a business transaction. It's a relationship. It can be a transformational relationship. You bring the positivity and you make your patient feel positive at the end of the session or a appointment. They will go better home with a better attitude, better preparation, better change in their lifestyle. But if you go there with an attitude of negativity and kind of scorn and disdain and disrespect, it's not going to work. So you have to have that positive attitude and positive relationship. And compliment, again, relationships depends on compliments. Compliment is like depositing money in the bank. You make 5 deposits before you take one withdrawal from your bank account. Give 5 compliments to your spouse or your child or your friend before you give one negative comment or a criticism, which may be true, but they don't accept it unless you couple them with multiple compliments together. Then you have better acceptance of your feedback and better communication between two of you. And the another thing I just want to touch base is emotional intelligence. That's very, very important. It's not the IQ that determines your success as a C-suite, like a CEO or whatever. It's the emotional intelligence. It has been proven. Emotional intelligence is more determinant of your success than anything else, not your intelligence, it's your emotional intelligence. So those are the concepts. I just want to touch bases before I leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. And it's very nice to hear from you about this, all your experience and wisdom from your practice and your specialty. So without further delay, Snehal, over to you, and we'll go with Dr. Jairam.
So, thank you. We welcome Dr. Jairam Thimapuram. for the topic of the day, how to beat burnout and how to be a heartful physician. This is what we're going to hear from him. So Dr. Jairam Thimapuram is an academic hospitalist in internal medicine at Wellspan York Hospital. He has a special interest in research and has several articles which have been published in renowned medical journals. He is a recipient of Gold Humanism Award, an outstanding teacher of the year, and a resident of the year awards. He has completed a lot of research projects for heartfulness meditation, and it's studying its effects in lowering stress and burnout and improving sleep. He is a TEDx speaker as well. So we welcome Dr. Jairam Thimapuram to take up the topic for the day.
Thank you so much, Nehal. And what I will do is I'll share my screen. Okay. So welcome everyone, and thank you all for being here. My name is Jai Thimapuram. I'm an internal medicine physician. I think you've heard an excellent introduction by Dr. Kohli. I think most of the points that he had shared are very relevant for us as healthcare professionals, and not only healthcare professionals, as a human being, right? Most of the things are very, very relevant. You know, this last couple of years, right? They've been rough. They've been pretty rough for a lot of us, for almost all of us. And we've heard terms that we have never heard before. And in fact, there's been a lot of emotional turbulence that we have all gone through, right? And it has affected almost all of us. But if we look at it, right, it is not just about the stress, it is about the degree of it, right? When we are not stressed at all, we are bored, right? But imagine there is a gradual increase of it. At some point, it's going to hit a point where stress actually promotes the way we handle situations. It promotes the way we work, right? It's called eustress. But imagine that going up, and there comes a point where it is difficult to handle things. We feel it is overloaded, right? And what happens is we feel a bit exhausted. And imagine being exhausted for prolonged periods of time. That leads to negative consequences. And in fact, it can lead to burnout, right? And how does it look? For a lot of us, it can affect us in many ways. Healthcare profession is one of the professions where at any given point, 4 out of 10 healthcare professionals are all burned out. And this is how it may look like. And in fact, if we look at what has happened over the last couple of years, a lot of healthcare professionals have done a lot of good things. You know, my heart fills up with gratitude for all the work that has been put in support of those who are suffering. Right? But when it goes on for a long period of time, it does take a toll, right? And sometimes it feels as if there is a little strand holding us together, ready to snap. There is a term for it called burnout. And Christina Maslach, she has done a lot of work on this, and she talked about it in a very clear way. And she said, you know what, it's actually a syndrome where, have you ever felt that you're emotionally exhausted? Have you ever felt that you're not performing to the best possible extent? And have you ever felt that there is a little cynicism creeping in, right? These are the symptoms that we talk about when we talk about burnout, right? And it's not a pleasant feeling to have. And what happens when we go through these feelings of burnout, this exhaustion, the anxieties and stresses, right? All our experiences shape us, and these experiences make us who we are. But if I tell you that it is not only about what we go through during the daytime, but also the state of mind that we are in before we go to bed. That plays a significant role as well. Imagine going to bed at night, maybe in a state of anxiety or stress, or maybe after an argument, or being sad. Right? This emotional state, this emotional memory gets deposited in a part of the brain called the hippocampus, right? The highlighted portions that you are seeing on the screen. And you know something else that happens during sleep? This memory is transferred to the prefrontal cortex, or the front portion of our brains. And that is our personality center. So knowingly or unknowingly, we are forming our own personality based on the state of mind that we are in before we go to bed at night. But if we are able to shift that a little, settle down for a few minutes before we go to bed, meditate for a few minutes. If we are able to go to bed in that calmer state of mind, it is possible for us to change our inner state from an anxious or stressed out personality to a calmer state. You know, there are 3 things that are very important when we go to bed at night: our attitude, our intention, and also the way we look at things. Right? If we are able to settle down on something good within our own hearts, let us call it a source of light within our own hearts, and go to bed in that calmer state of mind, deeply connected with our own selves, right? And slowly we are sending a signal to ourselves that this is what we want to preserve. Our brain is almost like a garden. There are plants that we want to cultivate, and there are weeds that we want to remove, right? And whatever we pay attention to gets cultivated. And whatever we do not pay attention to gets cleaned up. It's called synaptic pruning, right? And imagine paying attention to negativity more than what is necessary, right? Now we are sending a signal that this is the plant that we want to cultivate. And in the process, what happens is we are not paying attention to anything good at all. And those are considered as weeds, they get removed. And that may be the reason why we become progressively cynical if we keep paying attention to negativity. If we are able to shift that and change our attention towards something good within our own hearts, now we are sending a signal that this is the plant that we want to cultivate. Our system is so beautifully designed that whatever we are not paying attention to gets slowly removed. And in the process of paying attention to the intrinsic goodness of our own hearts, we cultivate it. And that is one simple way of making ourselves a better version of our own selves. You know, something else that happens when we are deeply resting. In this day and age, there is one thing that we are all missing: that deep rest that our soul craves for, that our heart craves for, that our body craves for, that our mind craves for. We do not provide it, right? Now, what happens when we go into that deepest state of rest? You know, nature offers it through sleep, right? And when we are in the deepest state of sleep, something wonderful happens. There's a paper that was published in 2019 that talks about it. You know, when we go to sleep, our brain waves initially, though they are active, but it goes into this slower stages, slower waveforms. In stage 3, we call it the slow wave sleep, characterized by the delta waves, right? And in this slow wave sleep, something wonderful happens. You know, this fluid around the brain called the cerebrospinal fluid, it actually flows through the brain, cleans up all the toxins that are built up during the daytime. You know, we go through many stresses and strains during the daytime, and all the cells that are active, they do produce byproducts, right? And during this deep state of rest, it all gets cleaned up. And that's the reason why when we wake up after a good night's sleep, we feel refreshed. And it is very important to provide ourselves an opportunity to get that deep state of rest. And this is the paper that I was talking about for those who are interested to take a look at it. Now, why am I talking about all this when I'm talking about meditative practices, right? No, Dr. Reddy, who is in Dayton, he conducted a research study, and he asked me to, he asked for volunteers, and I volunteered for this study, where he hooked me on to this EEG leads to see what happened to the brain waves when one meditates, right? And it was the heartfulness meditation technique that was used. And this is what happened. It was interesting to see that as soon as I started meditating, the brain waves slowed down, but it slowed down to an extent that it went to the stage 3 sleep pattern within 15 minutes. One of the things that normally happens is when we hit that stage 3 sleep, our awareness is not there. We are gone, right? But during that episode, awareness was still present, but it was almost like a thoughtless awareness, where even the awareness of thoughtlessness came back a little later. And we talked about it on the previous slides, that when the brain waves are very slow, it is possible that the brain can get cleaned out, right? And maybe that is the reason why I felt absolutely refreshed after this session. Right? And from a practical point of view, can this be applied to healthcare professionals? From a practical point of view, can this be applied to burnout, right? So in our hospital, we wanted to test this out. We offered heartfulness meditation practice to physicians, nurses, and resident physicians for 12 weeks. We wanted to see the effect of heartfulness meditation practice on burnout, on emotional wellness, and we also measured what is called a telomere length. Right? And I'll talk about telomere when we come to that slide. But this is what happened. We had two groups. One group went through the heartfulness meditation practice, and the other group carried on as usual. And the group that actually went through the heartfulness meditation practice, we saw that there was a decrease in their emotional exhaustion, decrease of depersonalization or cynicism. There was an increase in their personal accomplishment scores. The control group, or the group that did not participate in heartfulness meditative practices, we did not see much of a difference. And this is a paper that was published in the Journal of Community Hospital Internal Medicine Perspectives. And we also measured emotional wellness, right? And we all have positive attributes, we have negative attributes, right? We want to enhance the positive attributes and maybe lower down our negative attributes. The positive attributes in the meditation group showed an improvement, and the areas that showed improvement are concentration, calmness, clarity of goal, harmony, sleep, joy, positive thinking, and self-confidence, and honesty to oneself. Negative qualities such as anger, stress, anxiety, fear, irritability, jealousy, addiction, apathy, and cynicism went down with statistical significance. And as clinicians, we are also interested in something tangible, right? So we measured something called telomere length. We collected the salivary samples of participants, and telomeres are basically at the tip of our chromosomal DNA. These are cap-like structure, similar to the plastic bit at the end of our shoelaces or aglets. In general, the longer the telomeres are, it reflects a healthier lifestyle and we live long. Maybe when they are shorter, not so, right? You know what? Stress can shorten these telomeres. And we measured this telomere length at the beginning and at the end of the study. We saw something interesting. In the younger population especially, we saw that the telomere length increased with statistical significance in the group that went through heartfulness meditation practice. To me, that was a very pleasant surprise. And we also offered heartfulness as a conference to our physicians and advanced practice providers. Around 200 of them attended this conference. And we wanted to measure the effect of this conference on burnout, right? And we not only measured the burnout scores before and a month after the conference, there was another group that did not attend the conference. And for that group, we gave a book on wellness to read, right? And it was interesting to see what happened. In the group that attended the conference, emotional exhaustion decreased with statistical significance in the younger population. And in the control group, or the group that read the book, there was no change. So this tells us something very interesting. Knowledge is good, But unless that knowledge is put into practice, that knowledge has not done its job yet. And this adds to the idea that practical experience matters a lot. And I'm not saying that it is just the meditative practices that help with burnout. It is one of the elements, but there are many things that we need to consider when we are talking about burnout, right? Accepting oneself as we are, right? It's very important to know that. And being perfect, don't make it a priority. We cannot be perfect, but we can aim for becoming a better version of our own selves. Connecting with people, right? And listening to what our body is asking us to do. If it is tired, if it is asking for us to take rest or sleep, listen to it, right? And even if things are very little, right? Even small things, if someone says thank you, appreciate that moment. These moments of appreciation can act as an antidote to our own burnout. And one thing that I also wanted to share is that just like we need fuel for running a car, we need good fuel for our own bodies, right? Healthy nutrition. If there is a possibility of having a good breakfast in the morning, a good healthy lunch, a healthy dinner, right? Prioritize that. Activity, right? It doesn't matter what kind of activity it is, right? Move your body, and that movement can affect your mood. Just as your physical activity affects your mood also affects your physical activity, right? They are both interrelated. If someone is very depressed or very down, it's okay to go for a long walk. See that if that activity can change your mood. Simple things like that can matter a lot. And age doesn't have anything to do with it. You can be active to the extent that is possible at any age. Whatever you love to do, do it. The third element is sleep, right? I would like to say that this is a very important element for our well-being. It actually forms the foundation of our wellness. It is the foundation to beat many negative consequences such as burnout. Each one of us, we long for a good night's sleep, right? But imagine not being able to sleep well for at least 3 nights a week, and this goes on for months and years. We call it chronic insomnia. A lot of people suffer from it, right? And we wanted to find out if heartfulness meditative practices improve sleep, especially in chronic insomnia. And this is a paper that we published in 2020. What we did was we had patients with chronic insomnia. We offered 8 weeks of heartfulness meditation practice to the patients with chronic insomnia. And we measured their insomnia severity index scores before the study and at the end of the study. We saw that their insomnia scores came down by more than half, from a score of 20.9 to a score of 10.4. And of course, the results were statistically significant, but it is not just these results that made me feel very happy. Some of the stories that our patients shared made me feel very happy as a physician. Some of them said, Dr. J, we were only able to sleep for 4 hours before. Now we're able to sleep for 7 hours, 8 hours, because of which our dreams have come back, something that I did not know before. As their sleep duration increased and their quality of sleep improved, they were able to get into the stages where they started processing their dreams as well. And sleep is one of the foundations to help with our well-being. Right? And when we offered it to our resident physicians for 1 week, we saw that they started to sleep much faster. Their quality of sleep improved. Their restfulness improved. And even the number of times they woke up at night also improved. There is another thing that is running parallel to this pandemic. There is an epidemic of loneliness, right? And more than ever, we are more isolated than we have been before, right? And this loneliness is not just about not being connected. We may be connected with 100 people, right? But if we do not have that meaningfulness of that connection, if there is no depth of that connection, we can still feel lonely. And even if we are connected with one person, and if that connection is deep and meaningful, it can act as an antidote to this feeling of loneliness. And we wanted to take it a step further. We wanted to see if practices of meditation improves loneliness. The reason we wanted to do this is this. When the participants asked me, Dr. J, why do you think meditation would help with loneliness? Why do you think heartfulness meditation would help, right? So this is what I shared. Loneliness is determined not only by our connection with others, it is also determined by how we are connected with our own selves. If we are not deeply connected with our own selves, we can still feel lonely. Right? If we are disconnected with our own selves, and that disconnection is what manifests as loneliness. Through meditative practices, what we do is we try to connect with our own selves in a much deeper way. Right? Sometimes residents ask me, Dr. J, you're just closing your eyes. What are you doing? Right? I tell them, when we close our eyes, it feels as if we are doing nothing, right? But we are doing something very important. To begin with, you're actually putting up with your own self. That's what it looks like, right? And then we realize that it is not so easy to put up with our own selves. And if it is so difficult to put up with our own selves, how do we expect others to put up with us? But with heartfulness meditative practices, what we do is we try to connect ourselves with something good within our own hearts. Let us call it a source of light or the intrinsic goodness of our own hearts, right? And as we keep doing that, slowly this inner landscape changes. And as it changes, we become comfortable with our own selves. A sense of inner ease comes into picture. And when we are at ease with our own selves, it becomes possible for us to be at ease with others and for others to be at ease with us. Relationships and harmony can tend to grow. And this is what we wanted to test out. And we also hypothesized that sleep would also improve with heartfulness meditative practices. A well-rested mind will be able to socialize well. A poorly rested mind will not be able to socialize well. It wants to isolate itself. And after 4 weeks of heartfulness meditative practices, this is what we saw. There was a much more reduction of sleep problems in the group that meditated, right? And there was a much more reduction of loneliness in the group that meditated. And this supports our hypothesis that the practices of meditation can help us in our own well-being in much more deeper ways than we can ever imagine. And one thing that I often share is in the morning before we go to work, we have good breakfast, right, to help us get through the day. In a similar way, it is equally important to recharge our batteries in a mental, emotional, and spiritual ways. Meditative practices help us recharge our inner batteries to help us get through the day with all the ups and downs that the day has to offer. And at the end of the day, no matter what we do, right, there is some degree of emotional dust that we accumulate. It is important to wipe that windshield of emotional dust out of our conscious screen, right, so that our evenings can be better. Heartfulness meditative practices offers a technique called rejuvenation that helps us remove the emotional influences of the day. It can help us have a better evening and a better night's sleep. The third element that I find very helpful that heartfulness meditation practices have offered me was this ability to pause. Whenever we encounter a situation, right, when we immediately react, often that reaction is not the best of ourselves. But if there is a possibility of pausing for a little bit, allowing that best from within to come out, perhaps a better version of ourselves will show up, right? And this ability to pause is what meditation can offer. When we close our eyes, we are mastering this art of the ability to pause and allowing the best to come out. And when all this happens, right, these meditative practices lead to a state of contemplative mind that in turn leads to a state of peace, right? It is only through that contemplative state of mind one can experience this inner peace. And it is through that inner peace, the sense of inner harmony is experienced. And when that inner harmony is there, one experiences joy. And when we meditate in a joyful state, it leads to even better outcomes. And in fact, there is the word meditation comes from the word called mudita, which means joy. And it is an inner feeling of great happiness. It is a feeling. It's not about thinking. It is an inner feeling, right? And I love this quote by Khalil Gibran, who says that there are those who give with joy, and that joy is their reward. When you give with joy, the joy stays with you. And if you want to give that joy, right, you need to have that joy within you. And how do you know? You know, one of the characteristics one experiences is this intrinsic lightness. This inner lightness is one of the characteristics of this joy. And in order to cultivate that, it is important to see if there are any practices that would help fill us up with that inner joy. I will now walk you through a simple heartfulness guided meditation session. This is a practice that has helped me. And this is a practice that I find very helpful for a lot of patients and also my colleagues who have experienced this. So if you are ready, I'll walk you through a simple relaxation technique followed by meditation for a short while. And after that, we will open up to the panel for any questions. So please sit comfortably and gently close your eyes. Breathe normally. Very slowly, move your attention to your toes. You may wiggle them a little and allow your toes to relax. Feel a very relaxing energy entering your feet from the ground, allowing your feet to completely relax. Let this energy slowly move up, relaxing your ankles, your lower legs, the calf muscles, your knees, upper legs, and your hips. Feel all these parts completely relaxed. Let this energy slowly move up, relaxing your lower back and your upper back. Feel your entire back relaxed. Very slowly, move your attention to your stomach area and allow all the muscles in there to relax. Move into your chest and allow your chest to deeply relax. Move on to your shoulders. Feel them getting lighter, as if they're melting away. Let this energy slowly move into your upper arms, elbows, your lower arms, your hands, and your fingers all the way to the fingertips. Slowly relax your neck. Gently loosen your jaw. Allow your chin to relax. Your lips and your eyes are very gently closed. Relax all the muscles of your face, including your forehead. Gently move into your mind and allow your mind to deeply and completely relax. And relax all the way to the top of your head and the back of your head. Gently scan your whole body from the top of your head to the tips of your toes and feel your entire body relaxed. Very slowly, move into your heart and gently settle in there. Rest your attention on the source of light within your heart. Do this in a very gentle and natural way. If your attention drifts, it's okay. It's normal. Gently move your attention back to your heart and feel as if the source of divine light within is attracting your attention inwards, and gently relax into that awareness. Towards the end, I will say that's all. And now let us continue to meditate. That's all. You may slowly come back to the present moment. And very gently open your eyes. So thank you all for joining. And for further resources, there are some websites. There is an app called Hearts app that you may want to explore. There are some nice features where it offers the possibility of meditating with a trainer as well. And the website is heartfulness.org. And there are many resources that you can use. And thank you all once again for joining me today. And I would like to thank the panelists and the moderators and our guests who have graciously agreed to participate in this.
Thank you, Jay. That's a beautiful presentation following Dr. Ravi's, that wise wisdom, message filled with wisdom. And, one of our mentors and the wise man once mentioned that certain people are chosen to carry certain activities in life. The nature chooses people, and especially these people are, especially people that come into service activities, like the healthcare professionals and others. So they are, he mentioned that the nature chooses these people. So always this question comes to us, how best we can carry our activities, how best we can perform these duties that are assigned to us as physicians, as otherwise other healthcare workers. So this healthy mind and healthy body is one concept. For that, this meditation practice is, personally, I felt so many benefits. Jay has explained with the nice scientific background, with the evidence-based approach. So with that, thank you, Jay and thank you, Ravi. And very beautiful and nice presentations. This gives us, a lot of optimism and appreciation of life, and being thankful to just be alive is a big gratitude nowadays. And I'll just tell you one humorous incident. One of my patients, he's 80 plus years old. So when somebody asks him how you're doing, he said, as long as I wake up in the morning, and if I don't hear the church music and I don't smell the roses, I'm good to go. Meaning, in Western world, you know what it means, right? So being alive, is a big gratitude, appreciation of life, appreciating our relationships, and what is my role, and how best I can carry my duties and taking care of my patients, and in a happy and joyful, heartful way. Being joyful, is it only good for myself and my family, or is it good for my, so the society and the patients in particular? A happy doctor leading to contented patient, more satisfaction, and more importantly, better clinical outcomes. with that, I invite the panelists make their expert comments, and there are more, there are a number of experts here, Dr. Hester O'Connor, Dr. Haresh Mehta, Dr. Sharath, and Dr. Parikshit Deshmukh from Florida. So whoever wants to take, just, please unmute.
Good morning. Yeah, good evening again. I just have to jump off. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I'll be leaving in a couple of minutes. And I again appreciate Jay for guiding through our meditation and progressive relaxation. It is really both energizing as well as relaxing at the same time. As physician, like Chandra said, it's a calling. It's not a profession. It's not a business. It's a profession. It's a calling. And if we can combine our passion with compassion, and combine our power with empowerment, and combine being emphatic with empathy, we'll be very successful. So remember, passion with compassion, empathy with empathicness, as well as power with empowerment. Those are three elements that we can bring to our patient-doctor relationship, and you can make miracles. We are God's gift. We are God's agents here, and we are chosen. We need to live up to that expectation. Society expects of us, and God expects of us too. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kohli. Thanks a lot for being with us.
So
Snehal, there is one question that I see on the chat, if I might answer it.
Yes, I was going to go to that. And the question which is there on the chat is from one of our doctors, friends. I'm a meditator, but I have lost my sound sleep when I was providing consultations to various patients through telemedicine. I was doing great in giving consultations, but I was not sleeping well myself. What was happening to me? Can someone explain this, please?
So if I could maybe begin an answer and then somebody else.
Esther.
Yes. I'm answering as a psychologist, so I'm a clinical psychologist. And I think that my experience is that many people have found offering telemedicine very exhausting and very draining. And I think there's something that picks up a couple of the things that Jay said, which is in the first thing, you're sort of, the focus is different because you're sitting it's a more intense experience for people. Often people are doing it more, the time isn't regular in terms of maybe you're working more into the evening or whatever. So you're not maybe getting enough movement breaks or enough hydration. But I think one of the things that Jay mentioned as well is if you're not switching off sufficiently before you go to bed, you're going to bed filled with the conversations you've been having and the intensity of it. And I think that the heartfulness rejuvenation that Jay talked about, in somehow being able, in terms of your physiology, being able to let go before you sleep, really makes a huge difference. But I think also we think we're immune or we pick up what's going on with other people much more than we realize, like how people are. And I think people have been struggling more. So I think that the more open you are in terms of doing the telemedicine, the more you're absorbing the atmosphere and the negativity. So I think that is something to try would be finishing the consultations at a good time so that you've got some time to unwind. And I would really recommend something like the rejuvenation and experimenting with that. But somebody else may want to add something.
Go to the other Panelists? Dr. Parikshit, would you like to add something on this?
No, I think she covered almost everything that I could have added. So thank you. No, I don't have anything to add to that.
So my question is, when we started, the pandemic started in 2020, and there was so much amount of confusion which started coming in our minds, and we were also unsure of actually going to the workplace. It is very well said that the good physician treats the disease and the great physician treats the patient who has a disease. But here it was the physician himself who needed to be treated and to be actually handheld, because we didn't know what we were looking at. So how do we, again, anyone can take it up, how do we take care of each other as colleagues, and how do we make the workplace a better place to live in, to be in together? Because every workplace in the healthcare industry today is affected, be it a clinic, be it a hospital, be it a special children's clinic like what I am, everyone is affected. So how do we make the world a better place to live in for our own colleagues?
So, Dr. Parikshit.
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to my mind is just by being an example to each other, that if I can manage myself well through the stressful times, and if I can preserve my own resources and utilize them for my own betterment, and achieve the, as Dr. Kohli was saying, post-traumatic growth, and make the stressful, difficult times useful for my own growth and convert them into resources for my own evolution. Then we become an example to others, and similarly the others will become examples to us, and there is so much to learn from each other. That one thing I would say, we can create this environment that will be conducive to growth, although it is difficult times. The other thing is just human support to each other. We don't have to be the counselor, psychologist, or psychiatrist to support each other. Just having a human connection, kind words, providing emotional support, just being present, listening to each other, and just having that human level support could be very useful um, for ongoing growth. So just at human level also, if we come together and support each other's strength and give each other strength to others, then I think that is a big resource for all of us.
For our well-being, like Jay mentioned in his talk, the physical health, emotional well-being, and spiritual energy, all these three aspects are important, right? So, going back to the physical energy and physical well-being, I would like Dr. Haresh to comment on physical well-being. What are the things that we can do to keep ourselves, Jay has already mentioned.
Yeah.
So as a cardiologist, to keep us fit, what is your perspective on physical well-being, along with what we can do to keep our spiritual energy?
Right. Okay. So physical well-being during the pandemic time generally tends to be difficult, because you tend to be confined in your home, and people always kept saying, how am I going to exercise out? I can't go out for a walk. I can't go out for a swim. So what I probably kept telling them, why don't you keep spanning your room as many times as you can and probably stretch your hands, do some free hand exercises, use TheraBands and keep yourself active and probably work at home. In fact, one of our colleagues, he lost 6 kilos just during the pandemic, and we asked him how did he do that. So he said he told his wife that I'm going to clean the house every day. So he would clean the whole house every day. So that's how he kept himself fit. So there are ways you can keep yourself fit. And plus, it improved communication with his wife. It improved the relationship with his wife. So obviously the wife said he's participating. I think physical is not difficult even during the pandemic. Coming to the spiritual and other parts, what I realized, over the years, I mean, not the pandemic included. So when I was in crisis during my college days, I had a guru whom we call a teacher, and I used to harass him every week with a letter of writing all my problems. And that's what Parikshit is talking about. He used to answer each and every letter of mine. And he used to write below this too shall pass like flowing water under the bridge. That's all he used to write to me every week. And I got out of it. So I think just understanding someone else's problem, being in his shoe, is good enough. And of course, as Jay has gone into details of meditation, I won't go there. And that's another step, another level which you can go and learn how to be dealing with these problems at workplace. And the other ways are, of course, organize a small play or a skit group. Like Snail is very good at that at her workplace. Make them happy. Maybe have a song, something like that. Right. Over to you, Dr. Chandrasekhar.
And Dr. Sharath, any comments?
I think I'll basically take the other question which Snehal asked, Dr. Parikshit, about how this pandemic, really made things worse, especially in healthcare professionals. So I've been saying since last 1.5 years, being an hospital administrator, so how to keep my flock together. Most important is, my doctors and my nurses and, my housekeeping staff, all the paramedical staff. See, when pandemic started in the beginning, so it was very tough, to make all these people or to motivate all these people, to come to hospital. That was the biggest challenge which I faced. So the challenges which the pre-COVID and the post-COVID. The post-COVID, all the pre-COVID challenges are there, even in post-COVID, with 10 to 20 times. And the new challenge which came in post-COVID is that fear of, life for every healthcare professional. And most importantly, see, they're getting infected and they're taking infection back home and giving it to their elders. I think this is the biggest concern which I have seen in all my staff. So there's a fear of their life and fear of their, other family members' life. And how to handle, I was really confused, in March, April, June to 2020. And I didn't know what I have to do to handle, at least in first 6 months. I'm sure first 3 months I have to handle that. And by 3 to 6 months, everyone, that becomes a new reality for everybody. And they'll start, working later on. But that first 3 months is very, very key, to bring to keep all my flock together to render services to the suffering human beings. I tried in many things. So one thing is, as an administrator, announcing, the first thing what I did is I told all our staff, we are going to take care of you and your family members if something happens, without charging single penny. So that is one thing which really gave confidence to all the staff and which made everyone come to hospital, because that's the biggest thing in India. If you got the infection and if you have to get admitted to hospital, I think you have to just throw away your 1 to 2 years of earnings, or all your savings will go. So that's the biggest problem. So this is one thing which really gave a lot of comfort. And second thing, what we did, see, what I thought at that point of time. So what gave confidence to me to come to hospital and to go around, COVID wards is, that my fear is basically subdued by whatever energy I filled into myself by my meditative practices. My fear is completely subdued. So I thought, I have to initiate similar things to all the people, who are working with me, and we initiated all the, meditative practices to them. So most of the people adapted it, and we conducted regular sessions, also weekly sessions, and that really gave a big boost to their, inner energies. And as Jay presented, see, all the negatives which surfaces, as I already told you, this, we healthcare professionals has problem pre-COVID also, but all these problems are tenfold or more than 20-fold in post-COVID. So they started surfacing more and more. So all these negative effects on healthcare professionals, as Jay mentioned, as Jay's studies showed, simple meditative practices will bring your negativism and negativities down on you, and it improves, the positivism and positivity. So that simple thing is enough, to motivate people and to work for, other human beings. I think, see, out of all my explorations, I think there are only two things which really helped me in making people work. One thing is informing them that we are there to take care of you and your family if something goes wrong. And second, giving these practices to them so that they take care of themselves. I think these are the only two things which really helped me in running our services uninterrupted. I think probably I'll end there.
So the one thing that like I share my experience, like Brother Sharad said, the spiritual practice clears us a clear view of what my role is, and what is my purpose in this whole episode. And the meditation makes it clear to me. So even following that, I have a question to either Haresh or Sharath. If I'm a physician taking care of the patients, and I have seen the sickness, health, and death, and has worked hard all day long for 15 hours, went home, and I just got didn't see my family much, got sleep. I mean, had my dinner and about to sleep, or went to sleep for half an hour. Suddenly the phone rings, and the person on the other end He's asking you for maybe a simple question, maybe a laxative for the patient. So how do you deal with that situation?
So I'm going to take this, then Sharath can take it because it's happened to me. So initially, I used to get very irritated when I was not a avid meditator. I used to get very angry and tell him this is not the time to call me. Because someone once called me at 3 a.m. and told me that injection Panudera is not available in the chemist. Do you have a replacement? And I was so angry. I told him Panudera is taken once a month. Why do you want to call me at 3 a.m.? But now, when you meditate, as you said, or you do this cleaning where you remove all the influences the patient and the environment has in you, the rejuvenation. So you change from reaction to response. And you start understanding why is he calling you. You start feeling if he's called you at this hour, something is troubling him which he doesn't have an answer to. And he's looking to you for an answer. So probably move from sympathy to empathy. I can put it that way. You start feeling for him and then you start responding rather than reacting. That's probably happens automatically, although it can be learned, but I think it happens automatically if you're into this meditative practice. As you said, you come to know your goal in life and what are you here for. Over to you, Sharath.
Yeah, well, see, you already answered it, pretty well. Yeah, but see, one other thing, what happens with meditation. We all start with the I, right? See, when somebody calls us, for petty reasons or for small problems, so we start thinking about my time got disturbed, or my rest is affected. But what with the regular meditative practices, what generally happens to humans, or what happened to me is I start including everything around me into myself. So that is the biggest thing which happened to me. When I start including everything around me into myself, obviously whatever I am doing is to myself. It's not to the other human being. So that is where this entire twist happens. And that twist basically brings a lot of automatisms into myself. That automatism is, see, everything is automatized. Once you think everything around you is in yourself, your empathy, your compassion. See, when a situation arises, if I start thinking about, I have to be empathetic or, sympathetic or compassionate, I mean, it's a kind of, I'm enforcing things on myself to do. So when I enforce these things on me, the effect of these things may not be complete. So, but when this happens automatically, so then the effect is complete, right? The output is complete, and the other person also receives, the service in a complete manner. So I think that is what happens, when we do regular meditation. So all your, that completely channelizes you, and it brings all these qualities, and and all these things becomes automatic inside you, and you will start encompassing whole thing around you inside you, and that really changes how you handle things which are coming towards you.
Dr. Ravi, you have any more comments? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's my pleasure. I'm learning a lot. Even though I'm a psychiatrist, I still can use some of these learnings. And yeah, Dr. From cardiologist from Mumbai said, yeah, responding is more important than just reacting. And that's also part of being emotionally intelligent. Emotional intelligence is the concept that was promoted by Daniel Goleman in his rare book. And beyond that, before that, Peter Solvay from Yale University, who's the dean and the professor, studied that. And before that, actually, intelligence scales included social intelligence as a concept. So social intelligence, emotional intelligence are very important. So basically, that's what it means is you need to be aware of your own emotions and kind of name it to tame it. You need to know what your emotions are and how you're reacting to the other person based on your emotions. So once you name your emotions and you realize your emotions, where they're coming from, it may not be coming from the situation, it's coming from something beyond that. So then you read the other person's emotions. For example, if your wife is mad or your spouse is mad or your colleague is mad, so try to read that emotion as well as your own emotional reaction, and then try to kind of manage these two emotions together to have a better relationship, communications, and better outcomes between you and the team. So this emotional intelligence concept is a very good concept to read up. There's a ton of books on it, ton of materials on it. It's a very, very important part of physicians. As emotional intelligent physicians will really accomplish a lot in that. And that's one thing I just want to chime in. And again, Dr. Sharath mentioned about as a system and as a system guy with a big responsibility for not just himself, but the entire system, how he came up with those answers. That is really very good to hear. And we wish there are more medical administrators in that kind of mindset. That would really help the physician burnout. The word physician burnout is being actually replaced by moral injury, which is a little bit of an ambiguous kind of word. So for example, for me, moral injury is something self-inflicted because of your own guilt and all that. But that moral injury they're talking about is inflicted by the system. So, but I think more enlightened, more intelligent administrators, actually physicians should be the administrator. I think there are more chiefs than necessary. I mean, in America has a fascination with the word chief executive, chief operations, chief technology, chief medical. I don't know. There are too many chiefs, not many Indians. I think we are the Indians who should be there. So anyway, so the enlightened administration will help the systems, and our own emotional intelligence will help us and interact with the patients and for better outcomes and better responses and reactions. So just want to add that. Thank you.
Dr. Hester, can you make a comment?
I really liked what Sharath said because I picked up from what he was saying something about if we have our emotional state and our inner state is taken care of by when we're connected with the source of light and the source of the universe and love within ourselves, we don't have to then be trying. It happens automatically. And it is something really, I think there's something really lovely about that. I love it. I thought that story was incredibly inspiring. Yeah, and I think it's beautiful because I was at a talk yesterday by an anaesthetist, because I give talks to the anesthesiology trainees in Dublin. And one of the doctors has done research, and there's huge burnout and moral injury. And I think that the simplicity of like the heartfulness practice will really change things. So the more of this, the better. So yeah, I was really inspired. Thank you.
If I may, I mean, we tend to neglect self-care. I mean, without self-care, there is no other care. You cannot, for example, if the rag that cleans the table is dirty, you're only going to spread the dirt around. You're not going to clean the table. So the self-care is the most important concept we need to all practice. Unless we are happy physicians, we're not going to be happy providers. And so self-acceptance, if you don't accept yourself, you're not going to accept other people. So self-care, self-acceptance, and even self-love. It's not selfishness, self-awareness. These are very important. It all starts with self. When you start with self, it encompasses the whole entire universe, because universe is within you, right? So that's another thing I just wanted to kind of add on. Thank you. Sorry about it.
That's very nice, Ravi. So Heartfulness offers a very nice way of connecting to ourselves. So basically, there is a small, simple meditative practice that we perform in the mornings, where we close our eyes, just like how Jay has taken us into the deep state of meditation. We connect ourselves with that love and the universe that our experts are talking about, and try to be in that same consciousness when we go to work. So that is, when we do that, immediate that experience that we notice is, that fear of, fear of getting something, getting affected in our duties, because you're here in that consciousness, you're acting as a duty, as an instrument, and you're performing your actions as best as you can. And that itself gives us a big relief from the fear of even dying. So following that, we carry these activities in a heartful way, in a mindful way, and bring our heart and goodness that all the speakers were talking about, and try to take that positive vibrations around. Right. So
Very well said, Dr. Koneru. There's one more important question which I would like to ask the panelists is, when we think of anxiety and burnout, there's one more emotion which actually lurks behind all of us, and that is fear. So I see this fear lurking around in the minds of the healthcare professionals. And since I'm also dealing with the specially able children, the parents who come to me with their little ones have this fear within them when they get their little ones. And when we're looking at the third wave coming, how can we remove this fear from the minds of people? Is there any technique which you would suggest for overcoming this emotion of fear? Dr. Parikshit, over to you.
Sure, thank you. So I would like to take the point from Dr. Kohli, which he talked about the negative emotions why we have. And fear can be considered as one of the negative emotions. But again, it's the emotion that has kept us alive over millenniums of years. That if we did not have that fear, we would be going to places where we should not go, and we will be taking actions we should not be taking, and possibly the consequence is death. And basically, there is a funny but important idea that the reason we have so much fear is because we derive from the ancestor who were fearful. Those who were happy-go-lucky and were not fearful, were fearless, got killed, and their genes did not survive in the lineage. And so those who were overly fearful and over-analyzing and always looking for threat and overly vigilant, those survived, and we derive from them.
Right.
Take it or leave
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that negativity bias is protective during our ancestral evolution, but it can be distressing. And like Jay said, there's a eustress and there's a distress. There's a Yerkes-Dodson curve. Up to a certain point, stress is good and improves your alertness and performance. At the plateau level, and then you come down, the performance goes down, your exhaustion goes up. So there's a eustress and the distress. So you need to know where your exhausting point is. So you try to raise the threshold for that by meditation and all those things. And negativity bias. And also there's a fear mongering going on in our society, right? That's also, so avoid too much news. I tell all my patients, don't watch news no more than 15 to 30 minutes a day. We have these 24/7 news channels. They're really polluting our mind. I mean, it's good. News is good. Nothing wrong with knowing, but constant repetition is not good. But that is their business. They flash like as if something breaking news. Nothing is breaking. It's been 10-year-old news. They keep on repeating breaking news. It's not nothing new. That is their modus of operandi. They just want the audience. They want the eyeball. So don't fall into the trap of watching news constantly. Third thing is social media. Social media and the technology is bringing us together, It's also kind of, again, the same. The fear mongering, hate mongering is rampant in our social media. So consume your social media just like you consume anything. If you go to McDonald's every single day, eat those 3 meals every day, you're going to be fat and die fast. Same thing with social media. It's junk food. It has its place, but it's not your main nutrition. Get your nutrition from proper diet. So avoid social media as much as you can, and avoid the 24/7 news cycles, and avoid negative people, because negativity breeds negativity and optimism beats optimism. So there are studies done. If your best friend is your neighbor, and if he's happy, your happiness is multiplied by 10 times. Same thing, if your best friend is within a driving distance and he's happy, you'll be happy. And your spouse is happy, you'll be happy. So it is not just a feel-good happiness. There's a biological reason for it. There's a mirror neurons, there's empathy centers. These all play in their role. So that's another thing. Social isolation, I think Jay also mentioned. Social isolation is a silent pandemic. Actually, there's such a big issue right now. The UK government has appointed a minister of loneliness to create programs to solve this problem. 50% of the Americans are lonely. And you can be around people and still be lonely. So loneliness is a big killer. It is worse than smoking, obesity, and lack of exercise. It has more mortality and morbidity, 4 times more mortality and morbidity associated with social isolation. So avoid social isolation. That's what I did yesterday, playing cards with my friend. So be connected with something bigger than you. Go to your spiritual activity or friendly activity or physical activity, something connected to something bigger than you. So those are another things I just want to share. Thank you.
Yeah. Can I have a minute?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So adding on to what Dr. Ravi Kohli just got into this, and I always believe that nutrition is not about eating; it's also about what you feed your mind. That's why I call food for thought. That's very, very important. And the second thing which I keep telling people, which I also learned over time with meditation, as Sharath was talking about automatism. So I tell them that one, you have to meditate to understand automatism. Second, you have to have the attitude of gratitude and stop living in the past and the future. Because we keep forgetting of looking at it now. And that's the biggest cause of fear. The past and the future. Present is never fearful. So you have to explain to them, and I'm at times a little bit crude in explaining to them by saying that when you have no control over your breath for the next moment, you're not even aware that you're going to be alive the next moment, then why worry about losing money or losing a job or losing something tomorrow or day after? Probably work for the now, work for the purpose you're there, and that's the way to look at it.
Absolutely.
So I would come back to Dr. Snehal's question on fear. Coming back to the same point is, to me, it was a big realization knowing that having this tendency where my attention goes towards fear again and again is inherent in me. It's in my genes. It's not my fault. So I should not be, the last thing I want to do is to blame myself for being fearful. So it's not, it's hardwired thinking. So having that awareness itself has brought a lot of relief to me. And I would explain to other patients also that, being fearful is normal and it is healthy. As long as we are not consumed by it, as long as we are not its slave. So here is the thing. If I was fearless, I would not be wearing PPE. If I was fearless, I would not be putting mask and no precautions. And that was stupid decision. That would have been stupid. So fear is really helpful. But as long as we are using that emotions for our safety, our betterment, then I don't think it will cause emotional distress. Anytime I take a business decision or any decisions in life, I think about negative aspects. I have to, otherwise I will be making an uninformed decision. So fear is necessary, but then it comes a time where I feel, okay, these things can happen, but I'm still going to do it because it's important these things get done. And actually I was looking at one of the Elon Musk interviews, because he's considered to be so fearless, and they asked him a question, don't you feel fear? And he said, yes, I feel fear, and it's very annoying that I feel it, but I still do it. I still do it because it's important to get things done. So courage is not about being fearless. Courage is putting fear on side when need comes. Fear is necessary for survival. So that awareness is really important. And the second thing is letting go. Now that we know that fear, I have analyzed the fear, these are the emotions and these are the facts. Now I'm going to make decisions based on the facts and not on the emotional charge. Because we think emotion, when we say I'm thinking emotionally, is really what we mean is I'm being influenced by emotional charge, which is based on a lot of the past events and the impressions those events have created. Now, in any emotion, there is a fact and then there is the emotional charge. If I can let go of the emotional charge and think through the facts and analyze the situation and take a conscious decision, I would say fear will drop. So first thing to remove fear is the awareness. The second thing is educating ourselves. What is reality and what is not? The fact that news portrays so much negativity is because they know that we human beings have tendency to be negative, and therefore if there is a positive news going on the TV, and there is a negative news going on which is bringing threat and all that, obviously we're going to watch the negative news, because yes, we'll deal with positivity later. I want to first protect myself. Let's look at the negative news. And that's how the media portrays so much negativity, because that's how their TRP grows. They know they play with populations very dormant, very powerful feeling of fear. So I feel just having this awareness will take us a long ahead, and removing that emotional charge. And heartfulness does this through the letting go, unwinding process in the evening that Dr. J had mentioned. By letting go of the emotional charge, we're not letting go of the memory, we're not letting go of our learning lessons that we have accumulated throughout the life, but we are letting go of the emotional charge so we don't remain under its influence all the time, whether consciously or subconsciously. So I'll pass it on back to Dr. Snehal.
You, Dr. Hester, do you have any suggestions?
The only thing from my experience when I'm at work in the hospital and that is that when I'm not fearful, my response isn't, I don't fuel the fear, because there's a lot of fear about. So when I'm calm, I meet fear from a completely different place. And I feel that that makes a difference. And that for me comes from my practice. So that's all.
Yeah, there's one more concept of faking it till you make it. I know it's kind of sounds phony, but sometimes just faking your fearlessness makes you fearless, right? What we act out sometimes becomes internalized. So we can just smiling makes you happy. You don't have to be smiling for something happening outside. Just smiling itself brings those same endorphin, same chemicals that makes you happy. So our acts kind of reflect back into our emotions. Even though our emotions can be leading to our actions and also can lead to our emotions.
So thank you, Ravi. So I'm a physician working hard, taking care of the patients. My fears are alleviated or they came down, subdued. And so how do I cultivate this attitude of joy within myself? Not the one that, you jump and, dance, internally, that peace, that calmness. And how do I keep that condition throughout the day and night? Like, Haresh got a call at 2:00 in the morning. And how do we give it to the others, distribute to the others? So we want to hear from all the panelists. And, we'll start off with Jay, and, others can please contribute.
Thank you, Chandra, for that excellent question, because the idea is not just about cultivating it, The idea is about distributing it, and in order to distribute something, we need to preserve it. So I also have one more thing to add about the question on fear. I remember a beautiful story shared by a meditation teacher. Say if you are in a grocery store and you're distributing milk, right? Or a blind person picks up milk and you see the expiry date that is almost over, right? And if you look at the date and say, you know what, out of love, you tell that person, this is expiring, you might want to get another one, right? Or you may fear the consequences of it, and then you tell them. There is a way of acting. You can act either out of love and concern for the other. You can put on the masks or double mask yourself out of fear, or you can double mask yourself out of love for humanity. Choose the way you want to do it, right? Fear is only a last resort to protect ourselves. When we evolve, we act out of love and compassion and not out of fear. That is one idea that struck me very deeply when I was listening to one of the meditation teachers. That is one thing. Coming back to this idea of cultivating and preserving the inner condition of joy, right? The word meditation comes from the word mudita, which actually means joy. Right? When we rest our attention on the deepest center within our own hearts, what we experience, it takes a little time for the mind to settle down, no doubt, right? But once it settles down, as we tune into that inner feeling and let that feeling resonate, because most often when we meditate, we are still in the zone of our thinking. But when it moves to the zone of feeling and allow those feelings to surface out, when we meditate and finish the meditation session, the transition is the key. The transition from that meditative state to our waking state is the key. If we are able to learn and master the transition, allow that inner state to come out and let it percolate within you. And when we distribute it, and don't hold it on to your own self, whoever you meet them with joy, right? If you are able to meet them with joy and give whatever you have, then you begin to realize that what you have acquired is infinite. It is not going to stay there and to get exhausted. If you realize that it is infinite, you'll freely distribute it. Be generous in distributing joy. You'll be joyous.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Actually, it stems from the fact, that we doctors generally tend to be selfish and we don't like to impart our knowledge, our skills to the progeny. But as it is very well known that knowledge, when given, remains and grows faster. And if you don't give it, it becomes extinct. So similarly, that's the same thing. If your inner condition, which you feel that Jay spoke about, the joy that you feel, it should be reflected on your face. The moment it's reflected on your face is automatically going to be given. So you have to be a giver if you really want to be a successful, either a spiritual or a professional or anything for that matter. Anybody who tries to hold everything for himself is not going to be able to distribute joy. And that brings to the concept of what Sarath was talking about. You have to include the entire universe within you and treat them as the same. And then it becomes an automatic process. Then you really don't have to make an effort. It just keeps happening.
Yeah, I agree totally with both of the earlier speakers. I mean, giving is more joyful than taking, that we all know, but we still tend to be, a lot of people tend to be takers than givers. I mean, the joy of giving is indescribable. There's a high you get from giving. If you actually go to a soup kitchen and serve, the joy you get is, you cannot put a price on it. And also realize the giver and taker is only a twist of wrist that makes you different. When you're giving, you get one twist, and the other, you're unfortunate to be the taker. That's just a fate that puts you in that position. But if you're in a position to give, there's nothing more joyful than that. So gratitude again. Altruism is also built into our genetic DNA. Just like Parikshit said, the fear is baked into our DNA. altruism gene is there. It's not a kind of a psychological, philosophical concept. There are altruistic genes that also protect us. There's a selfish gene, there's an altruistic gene. So it's still part of our DNA and our evolution. So giving is always better. I'm telling you. I'm not a biggest generous guy, but the moments of when I give, the joy I feel is you cannot describe it. Thank you.
Yeah, I can quote a study. They did a study on depressed patients, clinically depressed patients. Half of them were given an antidepressant medicine, and half of them were just asked to go help your neighbors, and that's all you do. And they, after a few weeks, they looked at both group, and both group had improved. But the group with antidepressant had improvement with some side effects, obviously, because they were taking the medicine. But the group which was just helping had equal improvement, just like antidepressant, without side effects. So the fact that they became giver, their attention, when they were told go help your neighbors, then immediately there was a switch in their mind. Okay, instead of thinking about what I don't have, now I have to think about what I have, so that I can give that to others. So when we become in a giver mode, our attention immediately shifts from what I want to what I want to give, so what I don't have to what I have, and that creates gratitude, and that brings the joy of giving and the inner satisfaction of helping others, and that helps elevates the mood and even help with the depression. So coming back to the joy aspect, I feel we all human beings have tendency to have joy. I have not seen a person yet in my life who says I don't want to be joyful. We all want to be joyful, and it triggered thinking in me why we all want to be joyful, why we all crave for joy, bliss, happiness, peace, contentment, all these qualities, why we crave for that. An answer I got was more philosophical, that we that is who we are, that is what we originally are. And it's like missing our home. We are very comfortable living at home, and when we are not at home, we miss it. We crave our home. We want to go back to our home, and that's what we are. We are joyful being. We are spiritual being. We are helpful, kind-hearted being, and that's what we want to be always. The fact is, the survival threats and fear and uncertainties and our lack of confidence and lack of faith leads to these cascades of doing things which are more kind of a selfish nature, and creates more uncertainty and distracts us from our original nature. That's why we tend to lose joy over the time, and tend to be very materialistic focused and have our ambitions and goals and become anxious to achieve them. But then we have shifted our attention from who we really are to just a survival mode. So reminding ourselves, there are two things we can do, particularly referencing to heartfulness meditation. When we are meditating, we are bringing our attention to who we really are in the core of our heart. So we are reminding ourselves who we are, and that bringing ourselves back again and again creates this default mode of coming back to our inner true self. And the second thing is letting go. Again, whatever we have accumulated, that distracts us from what we are to what we don't, what we are not, whatever that distracts us, letting go of that emotional charge, we have a better chance of remaining who we are, and claiming our true nature and be joyful. Thank you.
Thank you, Pari. Dr. Hester?
I actually don't have anything to add, because the answers have already been really given very beautifully. So yeah, I don't have anything to add. Thanks.
So
I would just like to add one thing, that sometimes you're far away from your loved ones, and you do feel we miss them. Like, my daughter is in US, I definitely miss her. And one of our spiritual teachers told us a very simple method of feeling that joy is just to close your eyes and pass thoughts of love to the person who is not close to you. And it really works wonders. It works beautiful wonders. So finding little joys in life, whether the person is with you or the person is not with you. And giving, as everyone said, is the most important quality we as humans naturally are endowed with. So let us share, give, and spread the joy of happiness and love. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sister Snehal. I think it's almost like more than 2 hours. It's such a very nice discussion, and all the panelists, they have done an excellent, tremendous, input for the doctors and also for the others. Like there are a number of volunteers, the caregivers for the families, caregivers for the patients, family members. They're all attending this, watching this on YouTube and on the Zoom link. So thank you. And the heartfulness practice, to summarize in a couple of sentences, helps us to connect ourselves in the morning, connect to that inner state of love, the intrinsic qualities, the intrinsic goodness of our heart through our meditation practice, and to keep that feeling, that consciousness throughout the day, and attend to our duties in that consciousness without any fear, and help us to cultivate and preserve and distribute this calmness, the serenity, and the joy. So and all the speakers mentioned about the joy of giving, the high of giving. I remember one time our spiritual teacher, he mentioned about the roses that distribute the hands that distribute the roses keep the fragrance, just like what Jay said in his talk. So with that, thank you for attending. Let's be hopeful, be positive, be optimistic, and I think when we are all together, we'll hopefully we'll see the end of this pandemic in a few months. And so Brother Sharath, if you have any comments, and and make the announcement about tomorrow's yoga day and close this session, that would be nice.
Yeah. I mean, this is the last session of our series of lectures on COVID related topics, and and the final one is like managing ourselves by using meditation during these difficult times. Yeah, probably we should collaborate again and come out with such sessions even in future also. So I think that's what we should plan, and we'll do that. Jay.
I just wanted to thank everyone for being here. Tomorrow is going to be an excellent program. Nanda, do you have a slide that you can share? And you can talk about it.
Thank you. And I want to thank the Heartfulness Institute, the volunteers, the media team, and already the volunteers are doing such an such a nice job. They've been helping these COVID sufferers, both to attend to their medical needs, spiritual needs, emotional needs, and they've been busy, and the media team has been busy. They're very supportive to bring this program, and also the AAPI, American Association of Physicians of Indian Origin, which I am a member, and I'm privileged to be a member of Heartfulness and AAPI. And AAPI has been doing a number of service activities, and more than $5 million worth of medical supplies and other resources were sent from US to India through the AAPI. And we are thankful for that, for the generous efforts. And hopefully we can collaborate with AAPI, Medicover, and Heartfulness, and bring more of these programs, and more of these programs whether there is a pandemic or whether it is post-pandemic. We look forward for that.
Yeah, one person, we have to thank before ending our session is Dr. Rakesh. He's our medical director who is, continuously behind the entire program, and I'm only behind him, and I think he's behind all of all of the others. So yeah, thank you, Dr. Rakesh. Yeah,
thank you, sir. My pleasure.
Thank you. And he's very persistent and wants to get the things done, right?
Mm.